Smoke filled the sky of Yethra 9, a dying moon covered in fire and shadows. Explosions still echoed in the distance, shaking the ground like thunder. The battle had ended, but not in victory. Captain Varel lay beneath a piece of her broken skyship. Her violet armor was cracked. Her silver blood slowly dripped onto the dirt, mixing with the ash around her. Her breathing was weak. Her eyes, bright and golden, were slowly closing. The Arethys had lost. Her people, once proud and wise, had been crushed by the Tsar Dominion, a cruel empire that took planets without mercy. The Arethys had tried to fight. They had believed. In honor, in strength, in standing together. But now Varel was alone. She had led her squad into the heart of the storm, hoping to turn the tide of battle. But the Tsar had set a trap. Her ship was hit, her soldiers scattered. One by one she had watched them fall. Now she could not move. Her arm was broken, her legs were trapped under metal. Her body ached, but her heart ached more. "This is it," she whispered, her voice dry and soft. "This is how it ends." She looked up at the red sky through the smoke. She could no longer hear the sounds of war, just the quiet hiss of burning fuel. Captain Varel closed her eyes. She waited for the cold silence of death, but instead she felt something warm. Something touched her hand, something not sharp or hard, but gentle. A voice spoke. "Hey, you're still alive." It was a strange voice. Deep, but kind. Calm, even though the world around them was still broken. She opened her eyes and saw a human. He was kneeling beside her, his face covered in dirt and sweat. His eyes were brown, full of concern. He wore no armor, just a torn jacket with a red cross symbol. His skin was rough, but his hands moved with care. "You're going to be okay," he said. Varel tried to speak, but no sound came. The human reached into a small bag and pulled out something that looked like a needle and cloth. He placed a small device on her chest. It buzzed and gave off a soft green light. "Your bones are fractured, but your heart's still going strong," he said. "That's good. Stay with me, all right?" She blinked. Why was he helping her? Didn't he know she was an alien? An Arethys warrior? He seemed to understand her confusion. "My name's Mason Carter," he said. "Human medic. Wasn't planning on being here either, to be honest." He gave a small smile. It looked tired, but real. "My drop pod crashed on the far side of the valley. Saw your ship go down. Thought someone might need help." Varel stared at him. Her people had said humans were careless, untrained, and too new to space travel. Some Arethys commanders called them curious animals. Others simply ignored them. But this human was kneeling in fire and blood, risking his life. For her. He reached under the wreckage and started pulling. The pain hit Varel like lightning. "Wait, stop," she gasped. "Sorry," he said. "I have to move this off your legs. You won't survive long otherwise. I'll be gentle, I promise." Varel clenched her teeth as he carefully lifted the metal piece. His arms shook and his forehead dripped with sweat, but he didn't stop. Inch by inch, he freed her legs. Once the metal was off, he slid a long blanket under her and dragged her out of the wreckage. The air outside was cold and sharp. The ground was hard and broken, but above them the stars were starting to shine. Through the smoke, Mason set her down near a small fire he had built. Around them were supplies from his crash site. He had made a rough shelter from ship panels and wires. "Not fancy, but it's better than the dirt," he said. Varel looked at him. "Why, help me?" she finally asked. Mason shrugged. "Because you're alive, because you needed it, that's reason enough, right?" She frowned. "I am Arethys, we are not allies." "Well," Mason said, opening a packet of food. "Maybe not yet." He handed her a water pack. She took it slowly. The liquid was cold and refreshing. Her throat loosened. "I thought humans were weak," she admitted. Mason chuckled. "Yeah, we get that a lot." Varel's eyes studied him. His face had small scars. His hands were rough, used to work. He was not a soldier, yet he had survived this nightmare. He had helped her without question. He was not weak. He was something else. Brave. She leaned back, against a piece of metal, still in pain, but calmer now. You have strange courage, she said softly. Mason poked at the fire. You should see me when I'm scared. That's when I'm really stubborn. The stars above them slowly moved across the sky. The smoke cleared a little. The battlefield was silent. For the first time in hours, Varel didn't feel like a warrior. She felt like a person. And this human, this strange, warm-hearted being, had reminded her what that meant. As her eyes began to close again, not from death but from rest, she whispered something in her own language. Mason looked over. What did you say? It means... She paused, then gave a tired smile. Thank you. He smiled back. Anytime, Captain. Captain Varel woke up again, but this time there was no pain. She was lying on a soft blanket made from stitched survival gear. Warm light flickered nearby from a small fire. The air smelled of smoke, metal, and something strange. Cooked food. She turned her head slowly. Her injuries were still there, but her body had been cleaned. A healing patch covered her chest, and her broken arm was held in place by a splint made from parts of an old helmet. And sitting across from her, watching the fire, was the same human, Mason Carter. He noticed her eyes open and smiled. Welcome back, he said. You were out for a while. How are you feeling? Varel's voice was rough. Better, I think. Good. Mason nodded. Your vitals looked steady this morning. That med kit of yours has some impressive tech. I just followed the pictures. She looked down and noticed her gear beside her. Her Arethus medical kit had been opened, but neatly. Nothing was stolen or damaged. He had used it to help her. You did this? She asked. Yeah, Mason said. I figured your own tools would work better. Hope I didn't break anything. Varel was quiet for a moment. Then she said, No, you did well. Mason grinned. That's good to hear. She slowly sat up, wincing. Mason moved closer but didn't touch her. Easy, he said. You're healing, but don't rush it. Varel took a breath. Where are we? Mason pointed to the shelter around them. This was my escape pod. Crashed here 2 days ago when the Tsar shot down our humanitarian convoy. I grabbed what I could and started building. Then I saw your ship fall in the distance. I thought, maybe someone else survived. She looked at him. You crossed the battlefield. Just to help a stranger? Yeah, he said simply. Why not? Varel didn't know what to say. In her world, people helped their own. Warriors saved warriors. Outsiders were enemies, but this human had risked everything for her, for no reason other than kindness. Mason stood up and walked to a pot over the fire. Are you hungry? He asked. I made something. It's not much, but it's warm. He poured some thick liquid into a small bowl and handed it to her. Varel sniffed it. It smelled odd, spices and something sweet but not bad. She took a sip. It was strange, but comforting. What is this? She asked. Oatmeal, Mason replied. Old earth food. My mom used to make it when I was sick. Figured it was a good time to bring it back. Varel ate slowly. Her body still ached, but she was beginning to feel strength again. They sat in silence for a while, just listening to the fire and the wind outside the shelter. Then Varel asked, Why are humans here on Yethra 9? This is not your war. Mason looked thoughtful. We came to help. The Galactic Council said this moon needed aid. Most big empires ignored it, but Earth, we try to do what we can. My unit was delivering food and medicine. Then the Tsar attacked. We didn't even get a chance to land properly. Varel's eyes narrowed. The Tsar do not respect healers or rules. Yeah, Mason said. I figured that out the hard way. She stared at him for a moment. You're not a soldier? Nope, just a medic. I trained to help people. Never thought I'd end up in a war zone, patching up aliens on a broken moon. Varel gave a small, tired smile. You are full of surprises, Mason Carter, he chuckled. You're not so bad yourself, Captain. A sudden sound outside made them both freeze. A distant hum, like flying machines. Varel's eyes widened. Tsar drones. Mason grabbed a pair of small binoculars and peered out through a crack in the shelter wall. 3 flyers scanning the ground, he said. They're looking for survivors. Or prisoners, Varel added. Mason looked back at her. Can you move? Not far, she admitted. Then we stay low, Mason said. I've covered the roof with thermal blankets. It should keep us hidden. They listened as the sound grew louder, then faded again. The drones passed by. Varel let out a slow breath. That was close. Mason nodded. Too close. We won't be safe here forever. We need to move soon. She looked at him. You have a plan? I've been scanning for signals, he said, walking over to a damaged communication device. There's a wrecked outpost 2 kilometers west. If I can reach it, I might be able to send a signal. Earth has a listening post in this sector. They might pick it up. 2 kilometers is far for someone with injuries, Varel said. I'll carry you if I have to, Mason said, half joking. She looked at him, surprised again by how serious he was. You are strange, she said. Your kind is new to the stars. Yet you act as if you belong here. Mason shrugged. We're new, yeah. But we learn fast. And we care. That's what makes us different, I guess. Varel didn't answer right away. Back, home in the towers of Arethus Prime, her teacher spoke of humans as children of the stars, curious, messy, untrained. Useful in small ways, but not important. But this man, this human, was not small. He was brave, kind, smart. She was starting to understand what made humans special. I believe you, Mason Carter, she said softly. He smiled. Good. Then we'll get through this together. Outside, the stars were returning. The smoke in the sky was fading, and deep within the dark ruins of Yethra 9, a strange new alliance was forming, one that would change the galaxy forever. The wind on Yethra 9 had changed. Smoke still floated across the broken land, but the firestorms had calmed. Silence now ruled the ruins, an eerie silence that felt too heavy, like something was watching. Captain Varel stood slowly with Mason's help. Her legs were weak, but stronger than before. Her wounds were healing, thanks to both human and Arethus medicine. They had stayed hidden in the small shelter for 3 days. It was no longer safe. The Tsar drones were searching nearby, and each day they flew closer. We need to leave now, Mason said, checking his small hand scanner. They're sweeping in patterns. This side of the valley will be crawling with them soon. Varel nodded. Then we go to the outpost. It was 2 kilometers west across shattered hills and collapsed buildings. The Arethus had once built a forward base there, until the Tsar destroyed it. But if any communication equipment still worked, they could send a signal, and maybe someone would hear them. Mason packed food and medical gear into his bag. He also carried a small tool that looked like a spark gun, just in case. Varel took her own weapon, a half-broken plasma blade. It still glowed faintly when she held it, like it was waiting for one last battle. You ready? He asked. Varel looked at the fire one last time, then nodded. Let's go. The path was rough and silent. They moved slowly, sticking to the shadows. Broken machines, burned vehicles, and skeletons of buildings lined the road like ghosts from a forgotten war. Mason helped Varel when the path became steep. She hated needing help, but he never complained. He didn't treat her like she was weak. He treated her like a teammate, like an equal. We're halfway there, Mason said, stopping behind a large metal beam. Let's take a break. Varel sat, breathing heavily. The cold wind made her shiver, but she didn't show it. Mason handed her water and looked at the sky. You ever wonder how we got here? He asked. Varel raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I mean, Mason said, us, humans, and Arethus. We were from different parts of the galaxy. We had no reason to meet, but now we're walking through a war together. Feels strange. Varel thought for a moment. Strange, yes, but maybe that is how all important things begin. Mason smiled. Maybe so. Suddenly, a sharp buzzing sound filled the air. Mason's scanner beeped rapidly. Drone, coming fast, get down. They dove behind a collapsed pillar just as a Tsar scout drone flew over the ridge. It was sleek, black, and shaped like a stingray, its red eyes scanning the ground. Varel froze. Her hand went to her weapon, but Mason gently held her wrist. No, if we fight, it alerts the others. She nodded. They stayed perfectly still. The drone hovered for a moment, then moved on. When the sound faded, they both let out a breath. That was too close, Mason whispered. They are hunting, Varel said. They must believe survivors are still here. Well, they're right, Mason muttered. Let's keep moving. The sun was beginning to set when they reached the outpost. What was once a strong Arethus building was now a ruin. Walls had fallen. Towers were bent. Smoke still rose from cracked floors, but part of the underground bunker looked untouched. This way, Varel said, leading him through the broken entrance. They moved carefully through the hall. The walls were dark, the lights broken, but her memory guided them. Finally, they reached the communication room. The door was half buried under rubble. Mason looked at her. Think we can open it? Varel placed her hand on the control panel. Sparks flew, but the door moved just a little. Manual override, she said. Together, they pushed. The metal creaked, groaned, and finally slid open. Inside was a room full of old machines and blinking lights. Dust covered everything, but the main console still glowed faintly. Mason ran forward. This is it. If I can boost the signal, we can send a distress call. He pulled tools from his bag and started working. Wires were connected, panels were opened. Varel watched as he moved with focus and speed. You're good at this, she said. I fix what I can, Mason replied. It's a habit. A few minutes later, a light turned green. Got it, he said. Now we just need a message. He opened a recording channel. This is Mason Carter, human field medic, broadcasting from Yethra 9. We are stranded in Sector Delta, near the ruined Arethus outpost, requesting rescue. We have wounded. Please respond. He looked at Varel. Want to say something? She stepped forward. This is Captain Varel of the Arethus Command Fleet. We are alive. We request immediate extraction. Coordinates are attached. End message. Mason sent the signal. Then, they waited. Hours passed. The signal repeated every 5 minutes. Outside, the night grew darker. Distant booms echoed now and then, but the sky above was quiet. Mason and Varel sat near a broken console, sharing the last of their water. Do you think anyone will come? Mason asked softly. Varel didn't answer at first. Then she said, I don't know, but hope is the one thing the Tsar cannot destroy. He smiled. That sounds like something my grandfather would say. Suddenly, beep. The console flashed. Voice crackled through. Signal received. Extraction team en route. Hold position. Mason jumped up. Yes, they heard us. Varel closed her eyes and breathed deeply. We're not alone anymore. But before they could celebrate, crash. The wall behind them exploded. Smoke and dust filled the room. A Tsar soldier stepped through, tall and cold, its armor glowing red. It had tracked the signal. It had come to kill. Mason pulled his tool, useless against the armored enemy. Varel stood quickly, her plasma blade igniting in her hand. Her body still hurt, but she didn't hesitate. Stay behind me, she told. Mason. The Tsar raised its weapon, but before it could fire, Varel charged. Her blade flashed blue in the darkness. The Tsar soldier stood tall, its red armor shining like a burning wall. Its eyes glowed, scanning the room with cold purpose. Captain Varel did not hesitate. Even though her body still ached from wounds, she lifted her plasma blade and charged forward. The weapon in her hand lit up with blue light. Old Arethus energy, strong and pure. The Tsar raised its blaster. A flash of red light shot across the room. Varel rolled to the side just in time. The blast hit the floor, sending sparks into the air. She pushed forward, closing the distance between them. With one swift move, she slashed at the Tsar's arm. The blade sliced through part of its armor, leaving a deep glowing mark. The Tsar growled and swung its heavy fist toward her. It hit her shoulder and she stumbled back, pain shooting through her. Mason shouted from behind the console. "Varel! I'm fine," she shouted, steadying herself. The Tsar turned its attention to Mason now, stepping forward with slow, deadly movements. Varel's eyes narrowed. She would not let this creature harm him. With a sudden burst of strength, she jumped and landed behind the Tsar. Her blade stabbed into the back of its armor, deep and fast. The Tsar let out a strange sound, a mix of machine and rage. It turned, trying to shake her off, but she held on. With a final push, she drove the blade into the power core near its spine. The Tsar froze and fell. Its body hit the floor with a loud crash. The red lights in its armor dimmed. Varel stood over it, breathing hard. Mason ran to her side. "Are you okay?" She nodded slowly. "I am now." He looked at the fallen enemy. "You saved me." "You would have done the same," she said softly. They didn't speak for a moment. The silence was deep, almost peaceful, except for the faint hum of the signal transmitter, still repeating the rescue message. Mason walked over and checked the console. "Signal still active. The rescue team should be here soon." Varel sat down beside a broken wall, resting her blade beside her. "I forgot what it felt like," she said. "What?" Mason asked. "To fight for something, more than just duty. To protect someone because it matters. Not for war, not for orders, just because it's right." Mason sat next to her. "I think that's what makes us human." She looked at him and smiled. "Maybe it's what makes us the same." Hours passed. Mason and Varel stayed hidden inside the outpost. More drones passed overhead, but none came close. The body of the Tsar soldier was moved and traps were set at the entrance just in case. Mason checked the supplies. "Only one water pack left." Varel nodded. "We can share." He handed it to her first, but she gave it back. "You need it. More." Mason raised an eyebrow. "Captain's orders?" "Exactly," she said. They both laughed quietly. In the middle of a broken world, the sound of laughter felt strange and wonderful. Suddenly, the console lit up again. A voice crackled through. "Rescue ship incoming. ETA, 10 minutes. Signal locked. Stay in place." Mason stood. "They're coming." Varel tried to stand too, but her legs gave out slightly. Mason caught her. "Easy. You've done enough." She nodded. "Just help me get outside. I want to see the stars when they arrive." 10 minutes later, the sky lit up with white lights. Sleek rescue ship descended from the clouds, its engines quiet but powerful. It hovered just above the outpost, shining spotlights around the area. Two figures dropped down on ropes, a human soldier and a medic in blue armor. Both held scanners and looked alert. "Are you Mason Carter?" the soldier asked. Mason stepped forward. "Yes, and this is Captain Varel, Aretha's fleet. She needs help." The medic ran to Varel and began scanning her. "Vitals are low but stable. You're lucky." "No," Varel said. "I had help." The soldier looked at Mason. "We've been trying to reach you for days. Thought your team was lost." "We were," Mason said, glancing at Varel. "But not forgotten." They lifted Varel gently onto a stretcher and helped Mason aboard. As the ship rose into the sky, Varel looked down at HFY 9, scarred, silent, and dark. But in her heart, she felt something new. A beginning. They reached a medical station in orbit a few hours later. Doctors, both human and alien, worked together. To treat Varel's wounds, she was placed in a recovery pod. Mason stayed nearby, watching through the glass. A few days later, she opened her eyes. He was still there? "Still watching over me?" she asked weakly. "Someone has to," Mason said with a grin. She smiled. "Then I guess I'm lucky." The story of Mason Carter and Captain Varel spread across the stars. A human and an Arethus, once strangers from different worlds, had fought together, survived together, and proved something powerful. Kindness can cross galaxies, and sometimes the strongest weapon in a war is the will to protect. Days passed aboard the Unity medical station, floating silently in the stars. Captain Varel recovered quickly, her Arethus biology responding well to the combined care of human and alien doctors. Her wounds closed, her strength returned, and the scar she carried inside and out began to heal. But even when her body was ready, she didn't ask to leave. She stayed, because Mason Carter was still there. Every day he visited her room, sometimes with food, sometimes with stories, and sometimes with silence, and each time she looked forward to it. "You could have left," she told him once, sitting beside the wide station window, watching distant planets drift by. "I could have," Mason agreed. "But you didn't leave me behind either." Varel turned to him. "I was trained to protect allies, but you were more than that. You saved me first." Mason smiled. "Then I guess we're even." News of their survival had reached both their worlds. The Arethus High Council sent a formal message. They praised Varel's courage and welcomed her return. But the tone was cold, political. They offered no true emotion. Earth, on the other hand, honored Mason with quiet respect. No medals, no speeches, just a letter from his commander saying, "Good work, you made us proud." Varel watched his face when he read it. She could see something in his eyes, something calm. He didn't want fame, he wanted peace. But peace in a galaxy at war was rare. One morning, as stars blinked softly outside the station, a message came through the intercom. "Captain Varel, Mason Carter, please report to the observation deck." They met there, walking side by side. The deck was large and open, with glass walls showing the dark beauty of space. At the center stood two figures, an Arethus diplomat in a silver robe and a human commander in a Navy uniform. "We have a proposal," the diplomat said. Varel raised an eyebrow. "What kind of proposal?" The commander stepped forward. "A joint task team, Arethus and human. Small missions, shared goals, rescue, recovery, protection, no war, just help." Mason and Varel looked at each other. "You want us to lead it?" Mason asked. "Not just lead," the diplomat replied. "You inspired it." Varel took a deep breath. "I spent years in battle. I saw my people grow cold. I forgot what hope looked like." Mason nodded. "But we found it again. Together." They turned back to the officials. "We'll do it," Varel said. The commander smiled. "Then may this be the start of something greater." The new ship was called the Horizon Star. It was small, fast, and built by both species. Arethus design, human systems. Inside, the lights glowed blue and gold, symbols from both cultures, carved into the walls. Varel stood on the bridge, wearing a new uniform that combined both of their flags. Mason entered with a datapad in hand. "We've got our first call," he said. "Where to?" she asked. "A colony near the rim. A storm damaged their dome. They need supplies and medical aid." She smiled. "Simple, just the way I like it." Mason grinned. "You know, some people said this would never work, that we're too different. And yet," Varel replied, looking around. "Here we are." He nodded. "Here we are." Weeks turned to months. The Horizon Star flew from system to system, helping where it could. Some places were broken, some were dangerous. But everywhere they went, Varel and Mason left behind something more powerful than ships or tech. They left hope. Varel's leadership, calm and wise, made people listen. Mason's care, warm and honest, made people trust. Together they became symbols of something the galaxy had nearly forgotten: unity. One day, while repairing a damaged station near the edge of the core worlds, Mason stood beside Varel as they looked out across a field of stars. "Do you ever miss your home?" he asked. "Sometimes," she replied. But now I think I'm building a new one. He looked at her. With me? She smiled. With all of us. You, me, the crew, every person we help. Home isn't a place. It's the people you choose to stand beside. Mason looked thoughtful. I like that. They stood in silence, watching the lights of the stars. Then suddenly Varel turned to him. When I closed my eyes on Yethra 9, I truly believed I would die. I know, Mason said softly. But I opened them and saw a human holding my hand. She said, You changed everything. Mason didn't say anything. He didn't need to. She took his hand gently. This time she held it. Not in fear, but in trust. And so, across a galaxy full of war and wonder, stories were told. Not of great armies or mighty empires, but of a captain who learned to hope again, and a medic who taught her how. Because in the end, the most powerful light is not the strongest weapons, but a hand that reaches out in the darkness and never lets go.